Imagine receiving a chilling call from a sister who hasn't heard from her brother in days. She's worried. She mentions the flu. By December 29th, 2019, hundreds of miles away, in Celebration, Florida, a neighborhood built to feel safe, close to Disney, deputies knock on Anthony and Megan Todt's door because his sister asked them to check. No answer. No sign of life. Now, rewind to learn who they were. Megan Todt, 42 years old, described by friends as a loving mother and yoga instructor. Their sons, Alek, 13, quiet and thoughtful. Tyler, 11, outgoing and lively, both gifted at piano. Their youngest, Zoe, just 4 years old, filled their home with laughter. And Breezy, the family dog, was never far from their side. On January 13th, 2020, deputies returned to serve an arrest warrant for Anthony Todt. Inside, in that same quiet home, they found Megan, Alek, Tyler, Zoe, and Breezy lying motionless, wrapped in blankets, in a state of decomposition. Anthony stood in the house, trembling, incoherent, telling them he'd lost Zoe's Mickey Mouse necklace. He claimed no memory of what happened. Autopsies revealed they had been killed weeks earlier, around late December. Megan and their 2 older sons had stab wounds. Zoe had none. Every child had high levels of Benadryl, as did Anthony. Homicidal violence with chemical sedation. Anthony originally confessed. He and his wife had decided to kill the family in preparation for an apocalypse, a pact to save their souls together. But at trial he reversed course, claiming Megan killed the children, then herself, and he was lying to protect her. He's now serving life in prison after a jury found him guilty of 4 counts of first-degree murder and cruelty to animals. So here's the question. How does a man go from weekend visits to a loving family to this? Over the next 2 hours, we'll piece together their last days, what neighbors saw, what searches and records show, the surveillance footage, the medical reports, phone records, confessions, and courtroom testimony. But first, did Megan truly lead them to death in some distorted plan, or was it Anthony acting alone under a compulsion he claimed to understand? What would you believe if the police ring your door unanswered, if your sister begs them to check on your family, and they find them all dead? Stay with us, because as the full timeline unfolds, every certainty fractures. This isn't just a case. It's a tragedy wrapped in contradiction, secrets, and denial. Before anyone knew what happened inside that house before Celebration, Florida became the site of one of the most chilling crimes in recent memory. There was a family, a husband, a wife, 3 children, a dog named Breezy, and from the outside, they seemed to have it all. Anthony and Megan Todt were the kind of couple you might see at a neighborhood barbecue or passing by on the sidewalk with strollers and snacks. Anthony, a licensed physical therapist, ran his own practice in Connecticut. Megan, a former yoga instructor, homeschooled their kids, managed the household, and shared motivational health posts online. They had recently moved from Colchester, Connecticut to Florida, searching, some say, for a slower life, sunshine, and space to breathe. Others say it was a retreat from something else entirely. But how many families hide storms behind the windows drawn shut? The Todts lived in a quiet rental home on Reserve Place, tucked in the safe, master-plan community built by the Walt Disney Company itself. Celebration was made to look like a utopia. Picture perfect. White picket fences, community pools, pastel-colored houses, Christmas lights on every porch. But as we've seen before, sometimes the most carefully constructed worlds are the ones most desperate to hide cracks. And cracks were showing if you knew where to look. In the months leading up to the family's deaths, Anthony's business was under investigation for insurance fraud. His physical therapy practice, Family Physical Therapy, was allegedly billing for appointments that never happened. Former employees came forward. Investigators say Anthony was facing mounting debt and pressure from federal authorities. But none of that was obvious from the outside. Not to friends, not to neighbors, not even to Megan's side of the family. Would you have seen the warning signs? A closed office? Missed phone calls? A husband too tired to talk? Or would you have simply thought, he's busy, she's overwhelmed, the kids are sick? Life gets like that sometimes, right? In late December 2019, Megan stopped posting on Facebook. Friends stopped hearing back from her. One even messaged saying, "Hey girl, just checking in, everything good?" No reply. Calls to Anthony went unanswered. His phone sent callers straight to voicemail. And when relatives tried reaching the kids, there was only silence. It was as if the entire family had vanished. It wasn't until Anthony's sister, Chrissy Caplet, contacted the Osceola County Sheriff's Office to request a welfare check that the first knock came at the Todt's door. Deputies visited the house not once, not twice, but multiple times between December 29th and January 13th. Each time, they received no response. Anthony's SUV was in the driveway. Lights had been seen on through the windows, but no one answered the door. What would you think if that was your brother's house? Your niece and nephews? Would you think they're busy, on a trip? Or would you know, in your gut, something was terribly wrong? Anthony would later say that Megan had the flu, and they were all resting. But by the time investigators finally forced their way into the home on January 13th, the truth was far worse than anyone had imagined. What was behind that door was not illness. It was the end of a family, and Anthony Todt was the only one left alive. Could a man live for weeks inside a house with the bodies of his children and wife and continue sleeping, eating, breathing like nothing happened? Could he really believe what he later claimed? That his wife had killed them all, and he stayed silent to protect her name? Or is that the final lie of a man unraveling in real time, long after his world collapsed? When deputies finally entered the Todt home on January 13th, 2020, the stench was overwhelming. In the master bedroom lay 4 decomposing bodies: Megan Todt, 42, Alek, 13, Tyler, 11, and Zoe, just 4 years old, all wrapped in blankets, all eerily positioned, and all of them holding rosary beads in their hands. The family dog, Breezy, was also found dead nearby. In the corner, sitting quietly, alive, was Anthony Todt, his skin pale, his body thin. He looked up at the deputies and said, "I don't know what day it is." He was immediately taken into custody. But the most shocking part wasn't just what the deputies found. It was what Anthony said once they had him. At first, he confessed. Calmly, deliberately. He claimed that he and Megan made a decision together to end the lives of their family and themselves. According to Anthony's first confession, it was a family suicide plan. He said the world was ending. He and Megan were preparing for the apocalypse. He spoke of ascending together. And yet, Anthony lived. He told investigators he had tried to overdose on Benadryl and stab himself, but survived. Does that sound like a grieving father following through on a pact? Or a man trying to create a story before the truth caught up? If a father truly believed in an end times plan, why were only the children drugged and smothered? Why did he survive? Was it a plan, or an excuse made after the horror had already happened? The autopsy results raised even more red flags. Each child had lethal amounts of Benadryl in their system. Megan had been stabbed twice in the abdomen. Alek and Tyler were both stabbed and showed signs of smothering. Zoe, the youngest, had no stab wounds but had been suffocated. Anthony, meanwhile, had only superficial wounds and high levels of Benadryl, but not enough to kill. Investigators believed Anthony drugged the children, maybe even over days, and then ended their lives while they slept. But the picture grew murkier. In later interviews, Anthony changed his story completely. He now claimed he didn't kill anyone, that it was Megan who gave the children the pills, that she smothered them, that when he returned home, she was lying in bed, dead beside their daughter. And why did he confess before then? Because, he said, he wanted to protect her memory. Do you believe this version of events? Would a father sit for weeks in a home with the bodies of his wife and children, just to protect a story? Or does guilt take strange shapes in the aftermath of unthinkable choices? Investigators weren't buying it, and neither did prosecutors. Anthony Todt was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of animal cruelty. He pleaded not guilty. In court, a clearer picture emerged. Anthony was under enormous pressure. His business was being investigated for $130,000 in insurance fraud. He had been living in Florida while pretending to run his Connecticut practice. He told everyone, including Megan, that everything was fine. But behind the scenes, everything was crumbling. His license was suspended. He was drowning in debt. And he was hiding it all. If you had the chance to speak to Anthony Todt, What would you ask him? Could anything justify what happened in that house? Or is this the kind of evil that wears the face of a husband, a father, until it doesn't? When police asked Anthony why he didn't call for help, why he stayed in the home, why he ate, slept, and lived among the dead, he responded, "I just didn't want them to leave." We'll take you inside the trial of Anthony Todt, from opening statements to closing arguments, and the final testimony that sealed his fate. What the jury heard will leave you stunned, and what Anthony said in his own defense may be the most disturbing thing of all. In April 2022, 2 years after the tragic discovery inside the Todt family home, Anthony Todt stood trial in Osceola County, Florida, clean-shaven, dressed in a suit, his demeanor calm. But for many in the courtroom, it was difficult to reconcile that image with what they had read, heard, and what they had seen through police body cams and sworn testimony. The prosecution laid it out plainly. Anthony Todt was not a broken man acting in grief. He was a fraud, a manipulator, and a killer who murdered his own family to cover up a collapsing world of lies. Prosecutors presented forensic evidence, including toxicology reports showing fatal amounts of diphenhydramine, the active ingredient in Benadryl, in each child. They also showed the pattern of injuries, the stabbings, the bruising, the suffocation signs. They played the 911 call. They displayed crime scene photos, edited for the jury but still haunting. They revealed Anthony's original confession, signed in his own handwriting. They outlined his financial ruin, his web of insurance fraud, his clinic's sudden closure, and his bizarre online searches leading up to the deaths. They argued that Megan Todt killed the children, and Anthony only confessed out of guilt and loyalty. But there was no forensic evidence, none, that supported that claim. No fingerprints, no suicide note, no indication Megan harmed anyone. Could you believe someone who changed their story so drastically? Would you trust a man who admitted to murder and then retracted it months later? Is it possible to love your family and still destroy them? Or is that love just a mask for something else? Megan's sister and others from her family gave victim impact statements, trembling, tearful, and deeply human. They described a woman full of joy, a devoted mother. She trusted him, one family member said. She believed he would never hurt her. And she was wrong. In less than 3 hours of deliberation, the jury found Anthony Todt guilty on all counts. 4 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of animal cruelty. The judge sentenced Anthony Todt to 4 consecutive life sentences, without the possibility of parole. He showed little emotion. What does justice look like in a case like this? Is life in prison enough when the victims are your own family? Or is there no justice that can truly make sense of a tragedy this devastating? In the aftermath, people across the country struggled to understand how a man like Anthony Todt could destroy the very people he claimed to live for. Online forums were filled with questions. Did he suffer from a mental break? Was this planned for months? Was there something cult-like behind their beliefs? The truth? We may never have all the answers. What we do know is that this tragedy didn't happen out of nowhere. It happened quietly, beneath the weight of debt, behind the screen of normalcy, beneath the roof of a house in a town built to feel like a dream. And now, that home sits empty, the silence inside louder than any siren. Megan, Alek, Tyler, Zoe, they were not just victims. They were a family, with dreams, with routines, with morning pancakes, bedtime stories, and dance parties in the kitchen. And now, they are gone. All we can do is remember them and ask ourselves, how many more families are suffering in silence, hiding behind the illusion of everything's fine, until it's not? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Was justice served? Could this have been prevented? And if you or someone you know is overwhelmed, isolated, or drowning under pressure, please reach out. Silence should never be the last sound a family hears. They were a family just like so many others. A mother who loved her children more than anything. A father who once swore to protect them. 3 beautiful kids with laughter in their lungs and the world at their feet. But in the end, silence took their place. This wasn't just a headline. This was Megan. This was Alek. This was Tyler. This was Zoe. We don't share these stories for shock. We share them because they matter. Because the warning signs, the quiet unraveling, the emotional collapse, they're often invisible until it's too late. And if one person watching this finds the courage to speak up, to check on a loved one, to open up about what they're going through. Then maybe something good can rise from something unspeakable. We'll never get Megan's voice back. We'll never hear Zoe's giggle or see Tyler's first day of high school or Alek's graduation. But we can say their names. We can tell their story. And we can remember what was lost. If this story moved you, please take a moment to comment their names below. Let's never forget them. If you're new here, consider subscribing for more real-life stories that deserve to be heard. And remember, stay aware, stay compassionate, and take care of those around you. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next story.